You're listening to Abroadening My Horizons on Paris Underground Radio. For more great content, please visit parisundergroundradio.com.
Hello, and welcome to Abroadening My Horizons on Paris Underground Radio. My name is Abby Riffel, and I'm a 21-year-old college student from a small town in Kansas who is living in Paris for the summer and will be bringing you along with me as I discover the city. So today is my last full day in Paris, and I thought that for this last podcast, I would do kind of like a talk through of what I've done so far on my trip and what I've thought about the things I've done, because I don't think I've given a very good timeline of what my actual trip has been. I think I've just been talking about the city and stuff. So I thought this would be good to recap everything that I've done. And before I begin, I know for a fact that I'm probably not going to pronounce some of these words correct, even though I've been here for a month. So if I get it wrong, I'm so sorry. I'm going to try my best, but we'll see how it goes. So my very first night in Paris, my group and I went and we watched the Eiffel Tower sparkle or light up. And I really enjoyed that. I know I've said it before, but I really think this is the perfect way to spend your first night in Paris, especially if you've never been before. It's just like so iconic, you know, like the most Parisian thing ever. That was like a great way to spend my first night. And then also that weekend, I had an orientation with my group, and that involved doing this like picture scavenger hunt around the city. And so that scavenger hunt took us to the Luxembourg Gardens, and it took us to the Louvre, and it just kind of took us to all those big places, I'd say, that like are must-sees, you know? And then we finished at the Eiffel Tower, and we ate crepes there, and we just talked to each other, and it was fun. Also on that weekend, the next day after the scavenger hunt, one of my friends from high school is actually living in France this summer. She's being an au pair, and she came over to Paris, and we just spent, I think it was my first Sunday. We spent that Sunday just running all over the city, kind of just looking at everything, finding things to see. Sometimes we didn't even know what we were looking at, but we were like, this is cool. Yeah, we took a boat tour. We had a picnic at the Eiffel Tower. It was just a really fun day, and I really enjoyed that. And if you didn't notice, I went to the Eiffel Tower 3 times within my first 3 days here in Paris. It was kind of funny just because I happened to be there by a coincidence. It's not like I was actively scouting out how to get back to the Eiffel Tower. I mean, it is a nice thing to look at. I enjoy looking at it, but I thought it was funny that I went so many times within such a short time span of being here. Of everything I did that weekend, I honestly think my picnic at the Eiffel Tower was my favorite because the weather was just so nice that day. We found a spot in the shade, and the atmosphere is just good in the afternoon. People are playing outside. Other people are having picnics. I saw a proposal, like, of course. It was just really relaxing, and it was a really simple thing to do that was still like touristy and that was still very French, you know? My first week here was when I started working, and that's gone really well. And I've loved doing this, and I've genuinely enjoyed every single second of this. And that first week, I also went on a walking tour around the city. And during that tour, I saw the Notre Dame and the Arc de Triomphe and these cafes where famous writers and artists would meet up and talk to each other. And I saw a lot of other historical places that I can't remember the name of, but I remember really enjoying on that tour. I loved that tour because it gave me so much history about the city, and I think I've gone on enough rants about how much I enjoy the history. That's why I recommended doing some sort of tour, because a lot of those tours give you the history of the city, and I think that's definitely an important part of your travel if you come here, is knowing about what has happened in the city. That first week, I also went to Sacré-Cœur. I hope I'm saying that right. It's this beautiful church on Montmartre, And it's where all these artists live and they create art, and you get a really great view of the city. And we happened to be there at sunset, so it was especially beautiful. And I honestly think being up there was one of my favorite places just for the view, because it was so stunning and I had never seen anything like that. And so after my first week, so my second weekend in Paris, I went to Versailles. And I know for a fact I've talked about that a lot in prior podcasts. So I'm pretty sure it's pretty well known how much I loved it and how excited I was to go there on my very last day. It's still one of my favorite places that I visited in Paris. It was just so pretty seeing all the decorations and then also being outside. I really like being in nature a little bit, and I just thought it was a really fun day. So for week 2 in Paris, I went back to the Luxembourg Gardens and I walked around, because the first time I was there, I didn't really get to spend a whole lot of time. So I went back and I just really spent an evening there, and I bought myself a coffee and I just walked around and looked at things, and I really liked it. It was one of the first things that I really did by myself in this city. And I thought it was good and just like a safe thing to do. And it was fun. And then that week, I also went back to the Arc de Triomphe. But this time we climbed the steps to the top to see the view. I really liked it. It was really, really pretty up there. And we got there around sunset and we stayed until the Eiffel Tower lit up. So it was a really cool view. But I'm not sure if it was worth the price to go up there. I think it cost like 13 euros to go up there, which is about the cost of going to a museum here. And so I paid 13 euros to walk up so many flights of stairs, and then you get to the top and it was just really crowded. I'm definitely glad I got the experience, but I wouldn't say that was like a must-see kind of thing to do in the city, but it was fun. I'm still glad I did it. Also, during my second week, that was when I went and watched some movies in French, and I really enjoyed that. It was a fun hobby for me. I liked it because sometimes I was tired and didn't want to run around the city and see things, but I still wanted to, take advantage of the fact that I was in France. So I feel like going to the movie theaters and watching French movies is kind of a compromise. It's a lazy day type of activity, I feel like. So now onto my third weekend in Paris. I went to the Musée d'Orsay, which I very much enjoyed, and I definitely recommend that. My friend who's the au pair, she came down again. So we went to that museum and we ran around the city again. That weekend we got tattoos in Paris because we're young. So of course we went and got tattoos in Paris. What else are 20-year-olds supposed to do? So that Sunday we went to Disneyland Paris, which is very much like an American tourist attraction here. But I didn't really mind because I love roller coasters. So I got to go ride some roller coasters. There was a lot of people who spoke English, so I kind of felt like I was at home. It was just a nice day. The weather was good for the most part, and I really enjoyed it. And now I'm on to my last full week in Paris. That week, I went on another little walking tour around the Marais, which is a really fun part of the city. I really enjoyed walking around it. And I got to have dinner with my coworkers, which was so much fun, meeting everyone and getting to talk to them about their lives and their experiences. And I really enjoyed that. Also that week, it was the Fête de la Musique, which means that there's music being played in the streets everywhere. It's like a giant music festival for the city. People are dancing everywhere and there's confetti being thrown. And it just felt like the whole city was just having fun that night. I really enjoyed that. I love dancing. So anytime there's music playing and there's groups of people dancing, I love to be out there and to just not really care what people think. I'm a terrible dancer, but I didn't even care. It was so much fun and nobody really cares. So if you can plan a Paris trip during that week, I would definitely recommend it because it's a fun, like free thing to do in the city. Also, that week, I visited the Louvre, which had been on my bucket list for a while, and it kind of took me a little bit to get tickets to go there, but I finally went and I loved it. I realized while I'm here, like I didn't really see myself as like an appreciator of the arts, really. Like I like going to art museums. I like history, but art is sometimes hard for me to enjoy as much. But I think I've realized while being here that I really like statues. And so like at the Louvre, that was one of my favorite things, was just seeing all the statues. And I think I mentioned them at Versailles, looking at all of them. I just really, something about it, I think is just so beautiful and so cool to see. And then my very last weekend on this trip, I actually wasn't in Paris. My program took us to Marseille for the weekend, and that was a really pretty place to be. It's by the Mediterranean Sea, I believe. So it's more of like a little coastal town. And we went to this island and we swam there for the day and walked around, and we walked to this church that they have there. And it gave us a good view of the water and of the city. And it was just so beautiful. And the weather was so nice. And like I mentioned before, I kind of like being in nature. And I'd just been in the city for so long that just getting to swim around and be on these rocky shores for the day was really nice and a good break, I feel like. For my last week, I've been just hanging out with all the other interns because I don't know when I'll see them again after this. So now I think it's time to talk about what I've learned while being here and how much my perspective has changed, because it definitely has. I think through being here for the month, I've definitely learned how to be myself and be brave in being myself. Before this trip, I would say that I was a pretty timid person. For example, I never really liked asking for help at stores or for directions if I was lost. Not because like I didn't think I needed the help, but because I didn't really like interacting with people. It just really intimidates me. That makes me sound really antisocial, but I'm not. I just get nervous interacting with new people. But on this trip, I feel like I've definitely kind of gotten over that. One of my first thoughts during this trip was how silly all of those times that I was scared to ask for help were, especially when I was really struggling with the language barrier here. I felt like I couldn't even ask for help because I didn't even know how to say that I needed help. And I just kept thinking back to all those times in America where I literally could have gone up to someone and spoken English and gotten the help I needed, and how I didn't, and how I took that for granted. I think I've definitely gotten over that, and I think I'm way more willing to ask for help and not be scared to ask for help. And I actually texted my best friend, I think it was like on day 4 here, and I said, I don't think I'll ever be scared to do something in America again because of how much harder it was to do things here when I didn't speak the native language. And it isn't even super hard in France because a lot of people speak English, but it was a lot more difficult and I wasn't expecting that. So I definitely don't think I'm ever going to take that for granted again in America. At least I hope I don't. And not really knowing about like the social cues here and not knowing the language humbled me very much. And so I had to really humble myself to be able to ask for help. And I'm so glad that I was forced to do that because I think it has helped me grow a lot and get over some of my timidness that I had before coming here. And also not being able to speak the most common language here made me realize how hard it would be for people in America who don't know English, because in Paris, there are English translations for things kind of everywhere in the city. So it's very accommodating for people who don't speak French. And a lot of people in the city are able to speak some sort of English to me as well, which is really nice when I'm here. But it made me feel kind of sad for all the people in America who don't speak English, because I feel like America isn't as accommodating to that as Paris is. And maybe some parts of America are, and I just haven't noticed it because I don't live there. But I feel like it's just not as common, at least where I'm from, to have people who are bilingual and can speak at least a little bit to you in your language. I just feel like if you're in America and you can't speak English, it's a lot harder than if you were in France not being able to speak French. If you are enjoying this podcast, you might enjoy our sister podcast, City of Muses, where host Jennifer Garrity sits down with contemporary artists, poets, dancers, and performers to explore what inspires them, what their creative processes are like, and how Paris has helped or hindered their dreams come true. You can listen on parisundergroundradio.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Abroadening My Horizons will return right after the break. Welcome back to Abroadening My Horizons. Another thing I realized was just how comfortable I am with my life back home and how much I really took that comfort for granted. I think it's really good for me to experience that discomfort because now I'm hoping I won't be as high-strung as I can be about being uncomfortable when I get back home. I just feel like this whole trip has just been a month of me being humbled, but being humbled in the absolute best way, not in a bad way at all. And in addition to being humbled, I feel like I've really gained a confidence here as well. When I first got here, there was a point where I felt ashamed to be an American, and then I had to learn to eventually just own it and go on with my life. Learning how to do that has really given me this confidence in just owning other parts of my life as well. And I think this trip has given me a lot of confidence that I may have been lacking before I came here. And I'm hoping that confidence will stay when I get back to America. This trip has also exposed me to so many different types of people. In the Midwest, you don't always see a lot of variation, but here you definitely do. I've really appreciated just being able to see so many different types of people every day. And I think that has really helped me grow in being able to see all these different people and learn where they may stand in all of this and where I may stand in all of this. And then finally, this trip has made me want to travel to see the world more. Before coming here, I really would not have described myself as someone who loves to travel or who wanted to go see the world. I had nothing against traveling or going and seeing places, but I didn't really have this burning desire to do so. But being on this trip has made me realize just how much there is to see in the world and how much of it I haven't seen yet. So I think I definitely want to see some other places now that I've been here. But I'm also already trying to think of ways on how to bring myself back to Paris as well, because this is where it all began. And I know the city is always going to have a special place in my heart because of that. This is my last podcast in Paris. And the next time you guys hear my voice again, I'll be speaking to you from Kansas again, which feels so weird to say and to think about. I just want to thank everyone who helped me in this month and getting here, to my program coordinators at Absolute Internship, to the Hagen Scholarship for helping me fund this trip, and to my college for allowing me to do this and get credit for it. And of course, I want to thank Paris Underground Radio for taking a chance on me, and all of the other podcast hosts who were so generous and willing to share with me their time and their tips and everything. And I want to thank specifically Jennifer Garrity, the founder of Paris Underground Radio, and the person who has taught and guided me all throughout this work and is the reason I'm talking into this mic right now. And of course, a special shout out to her dog, Effie, who would sleep next to me while I edited podcasts on the couch. All of you have made this trip absolutely unforgettable to me, and it's been a life-changing experience for sure. I think I said in my first podcast, I knew this trip would change my life, but I didn't know how, and it's so beautiful to be able to see how it's changed it now. This summer has definitely been an experience I don't think I can ever forget, even if I wanted to. So thank you. Thank you for listening to Abroadening My Horizons on Paris Underground Radio. I'm your host, Abby Riffel. If you liked this podcast, please make sure to rate it and give it a review. If you want to get in touch, you can reach me at hello@parisundergroundradio.com or on Instagram at @AbbyRiffel_. Thank you for listening.
This episode was produced by Abby Riffel and Jennifer Garrity for Paris Underground Radio. For more on this show and shows like it, please visit parisundergroundradio.com.